Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Wednesday, March 3rd, 2021, and today we're going to be talking about this new poll out of the state of Florida, a very influential state on the presidential level that has an upcoming governor's election in 2022. Now, I'm sure if you watch the news closely, you will know who Republican Governor Ron DeSantis is. He's someone who barely won in 2018, that has risen to popularity amongst Florida residents, but has been criticized by many members of the Democratic Party as well as the media for his handling of the COVID-19 virus. And looking at his job approval rating in Florida, it has certainly dipped down to 53%, but that's still a net positive 11 points, and overall it looks as if he's on track to be easily reelected in 2022. We'll talk about why this is good for the Florida GOP and what we could see on the same ballot as Ron DeSantis in 2022 and why that matters. Taking a look at these job approval ratings straight off the bat, you will notice that Ron DeSantis is approved of. As a Republican in a swing state, typically their performances are judged very heavily by both members by both parties. And looking at Ron DeSantis, well, it seems as if he's doing well, at least amongst Democrats and Republicans. Looking at his job approval ratings over the past few months, since 2019, you'll notice that it was at a higher point with 62% of Florida residents saying they approved of him, down to 45% in July, and now it's back up to 53%. So while in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic in the rise over the summer around July time period, maybe he was disapproved of, but now as things are starting to get incrementally better, but still it is not time to open up restrictions. I'm looking at, Governor Greg Abbott here. It is not the time at all. But, Ron DeSantis has been doing it. And I guess the citizens in Florida are positively responding to it to a point where his approval rating may be down from March 2019, but certainly is up because it's up 11 points. And you cannot ignore that, especially as a member of the Democratic Party looking at what they are looking to pick up in 2022. Florida may no longer be on the radar as it once was. And looking at the matchup here, they asked the question, how would you vote in a governor's election in 2022 between Representative Charlie Crist and Nikki Fried, right? I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name right. Sorry about that. But she's the agricultural commissioner. She seems to be probably the front runner, I would say, for the Democratic primary if Charlie Crist does not decide to run. Charlie Crist is a very recognizable name, which is why I'm surprised to see he's only at 41%. And, looking at the results here, both of these wins are very strong for Ron DeSantis. We're talking 11 points in one, 9 points in the other. Either way, no matter who you're looking at, it's bad. It's bad for the Democratic Party. And amongst independent voters, he leads Nikki Fried, 58 to 29%, and Charlie Crist 60 to 28. And that is just something that I think that the Democratic Party is going to have to make significant gains because right now, DeSantis is already starting out with 52% of the vote. And the bad reality is those undecideds typically break for the GOP 80 to 20, 90 to 10, especially in a state like Florida. So looking at the governor's results so far, the Democrats are not doing well. And, they also ask, how do you feel? When we're talking about job approval, that is different than just sort of, how do you feel, right? And, looking at the numbers here, Ron DeSantis, 48% of residents say, hey, okay, I have a favorable opinion of him. 13% say they're neutral, and 35% say they don't like them. Well, for Charlie Crist, it's up. 41% say they don't like him. 27% say they like him. And then for Nikki Fried, it's 21% that say, yeah, okay, I favor her a little bit. Probably don't know her looking at the amount that don't recognize, 37%. And then 15% say they don't like her. So looking at a couple of other questions, let's see what they ask here. They talk about the job approval rating. Then they also break it down by male, female, age, race. They also ask about the governor's race. And what do you notice is that amongst black voters, Ron DeSantis is getting 10% of the vote. He won 18% in 2018. So 10% of the vote is a dip, but he's winning the white vote by a lot. 61 to 33, and the Hispanic vote is 47 to 42. Amongst national Hispanic voters, overall as an entire voting bloc, and they're not a monolith, but Florida Hispanic voters certainly deviate from the national average, but comparing it, it's horrible. Absolutely abysmal. And then, looking at the party registration, you see that it gets even worse. Even against Charlie Crist, who some would argue maybe would have been one of the stronger candidates if Ron DeSantis was unpopular. That's the thing. He's not unpopular. He's doing very well, winning every region of the state except for Southeast Florida. But looking amongst male and female voters, Democrats should be doing very well amongst women voters. They're not doing it. Looking at the age groups, they're not doing it either. Race and ethnicity, what do we notice is that white voters still backing DeSantis. Hispanic voters actually back Crist here, as they do for Nikki Fried, but also it's not something substantial. It's not comparable even to what Joe Biden got in the state, which is a very bad thing for the Democrats. And I think that was it. In terms of the overall questions that they did how the poll was conducted, demographic breakdown, and then the Florida poll region. So we know the results. And, let's take a look at just a little bit of history about the state's electoral history. So 2020, Donald Trump won the state by 3.3%. He didn't win by a lot, but it was certainly a victory larger than what it was in 2016. Looking at the shift, a lot of counties shifted to the right, especially in Florida. Miami-Dade County being the most, the most rightward county in the entire state, shifting at least, where Donald Trump gained 200,000 votes, Joe Biden decreased by around 8,000. That means in a record-breaking turnout year, Joe Biden actually received less votes than Hillary Clinton did, of all people. And I think this also is a testament that Hillary Clinton was a very strong candidate for minority voters, just we didn't see it. We just didn't see it happening. And also the Democrats certainly did say, if Donald Trump, that minority voters would have their entire life, completely changed, upended, right? That didn't happen. For many minority voters, I would say because of the pandemic, it did. And for other impacts. But as an entire group, we've seen a lot of the status quo maintained. And, with Donald Trump as someone who was vilified by the left, and all these arguments were being made in 2016, if Donald Trump wins, if you don't vote for Hillary Clinton, minority voters and, their voting rights are going to be taken away. And, in some states, that's true. But looking at the overall impact of Donald Trump's presidency, besides the pandemic, not many people felt a direct implication. And, of course, there are exceptions. But I'm telling you now, as someone who lives in a majority minority county, many people here feel as if the Democratic Party did cry wolf in 2016. They voted for Democrats in 2020, but that sentiment was there. And looking specifically with Hispanic voters in Florida, the labeling of Donald Trump as a racist, them replaying the speeches made by Donald Trump, and sort of just using Donald Trump's words against him, sort of backfired on the Democrats for 2020. Because all of that was done in 2016, and when they tried to rerun that in 2020, it didn't work. And that's why a lot of minority voters moved to the Republican Party, because they said, the Democrats were telling us it was going to be horrible if Trump was elected. I'm doing fine now, so maybe I will vote for the Republicans. And that's sort of what I think a lot of the how the messaging worked, especially the socialist message. Joe Biden laughed it off, but he did not do enough to dispel that rumor, to dispel that notion that he was a socialist, because it's still being used against him today. And it worked, specifically in Florida, specifically in the Miami-Dade County region, the Miami part of the entire state. And looking at the results in 2018, this is the Senate. We're going to jump over to the governor's results. I don't know why. I can show you the Senate in just a moment just to give a little bit more context to the state's history. But Ron DeSantis didn't win by a lot. Ron DeSantis was not popular going into this election. He won by 0.4%. And looking at Miami-Dade County, Andrew Gillum did better than Joe Biden did and still lost. So looking at the entire state itself, it was just honestly just too much for the Democrats to overcome. Ron DeSantis came ahead. He was not expected to win. I'll tell you that much. Andrew Gillum was 100% expected to win this Florida governor race. And even in a Democratic environment where the Democrats were winning the House vote by 8 points, Florida was, it's inelastic. It pretty much is always a swing state, no matter what year, no matter what type of election. But 2022 might break that. Because what we're seeing is that Ron DeSantis is popular. He didn't go into 2018 being a super well-known statewide figure. He was able to win because he built his name, obviously, as the nominee, but he was not this popular statewide official. He's a House of Representatives member. And looking at the Florida result here, honestly, Ron DeSantis had a stellar performance, defying all expectations. But we're going to see probably a larger margin, unless the Democrats can turn around the tide in the state of Florida. And just taking a look at the 2022 Democratic primary, all of these people who have declared, none of them, they're not recognizable names. But in terms of those who have publicly expressed interest, Nikki Fried, Anna Escamani, Randolph Bracey, and then Charlie Crist, looking at his history, though, he was very, very, very interesting. So he was a Republican before. Let's go ahead and see if we find his governor's race before. He was the governor of Florida. So 2014 he ran. 2010 Charlie Crist. Okay, so let me see. I know he was a Republican before. Let's just go to his Wikipedia page. Yeah, so he's a Republican before 2010. And let's see, they have the party switch over here. I don't know. Just very interesting, right? So he joined the Democratic Party, ended up deciding to run against Rick Scott, ended up losing, but he was a Republican before. And I think that was just very interesting looking at his election results in the past, that he used to identify as a Republican, but was not ending up a Republican today, and now he's a Democratic representative member. So looking at the 2022 governor's race, let's see if we can get there really briefly. 2014, 2018, and 2022. Just looking at the list of names, honestly, the Democratic Party is going to need a very strong candidate. Some people are floating the possibility of Glenn Graham to run again. Maybe considering, Val Demings. The list is there. And the reason why I think that Charlie Crist is also announcing that he might be doing a statewide bid is because he's going to be redistricted into likely a safe Republican seat. So he's going to be screwed over in the House of Representatives. Maybe his next step is to run for a statewide office, but neither of these two candidates that are being floated are doing well. And, Ron DeSantis is also someone who's being mentioned on the national level, being mentioned as the favorite to win the 2024 nomination if Donald Trump doesn't decide to run. So looking at what I'm seeing so far, Ron DeSantis and the Republicans might actually end up riding this popular governor wave into victory in 2022. It'll be very interesting to see what happens. But at the end of the day, Charlie Crist, Nikki Fried, they aren't doing well. If I'm saying her name wrong, please correct me because I'll get it right by the next video. I promise you that. But looking at the results so far of these new numbers, they're not good for the Democratic Party. And, while 2022 could end up being a good year for the Democrats, Florida just might be out of reach yet again for another midterm election year for the Democrats. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch and then a playlist for my 2022 election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later today.